Hello and welcome back to problem set 3 of 11.2. Now let's look at this example. It says determine the simple interest that will be paid on a $500 loan at an interest rate of 7% for the period of March 3rd to May 3rd using the banker's rule. So whenever we look using the banker's rule, between March 3rd and May 3rd, we see that's going to be 61 days of the year, and a year equals 360 days. So that's really going to build the fraction 61 over 360 because that gives us an indication of the decimal or the fraction that we're going to have to use for the time. So there's our time. Okay, now we have to look at our principal, and if we look at that, we can see that it's the amount that's going to be paid on the loan, which is $500. And now we have the rate, and it's 7%, which if we look at it as a decimal becomes 0.07. Now let's use our formula of I equals P times R times T. And we're looking for the interest, so it's going to be I equals the principal of 500 times the rate of 0.07 times the time, which is 61, divided by 360. If you punch all that in your calculator, you're going to get I equals the interest amount of $5.93. Okay, now we have a more complex word problem, and it will be the last one of this video for 11.2. So let's get started. Kathy is a teacher and she's going to go to a conference. To pay for her airfare on November 1st, 2012, Kathy takes out a 120-day loan for $400 at an interest rate of 12.5%. Kathy uses some birthday gift money to make a partial payment of $150 on January 5th, 2003. She makes a second partial payment of $100 on February 2nd, 2003. So what we need to look at is first to determine the due date of the loan, interest and the amount credited to the principal January 5th, interest and the amount credited to the principal on February 2nd, and the amount that Kathy must pay on the due date. So let's first look at the due date of the loan. Okay, if you refer to the table 11.1 in the book, that's going to be the rules that bankers use for loans and such. You see that November 1st is the 305th day of the year. Next, you have to see that the sum of 350 and 120 is 425. Since the due date will be extended into the next year, you have to subtract 365 from 425 to get 60. And if you look at the table, you see that the 60th day of the year is March 1st. Therefore, the loan is due March 1st, 2013. So for this first part here, we had to use some abilities from the chart to see that it's going to be due March 1st. Okay, and then you use the table to see that January 5th is the 5th day of the year and January 1st is the 305th day of the year. The number of days from January to November 1st to January 5th can be compounded as follows. 365 minus 305, we're going to put these in parentheses, plus 5 equals 65. Then you have to use the I equals PRT in the banker's rule to get I equals $400, because that's how much you borrowed, times 100, or 0.125 as the rate, times the amount of the year divided by how many days are in the year. When you do that, you get that I is about $9.03. The interest of this amount is due January 5th and is deducted from the payment of $150. The remaining of $150, you take the $150 and subtract it from the $9.03, and you get 140.90. You get $140.87. So then you had to take the $400 that you originally borrowed and subtract this. This is how much has been paid on the loan to this date, and you're going to be left with the amount in dollars of $259.03. Okay, so from there you have the balance due equals the principal plus interest. Okay, so that's going to be the amount that's due now, the $559.03, plus the interest. And what's the interest? Well, to calculate the interest, it is the amount that you borrowed, so it's the $259.03, times the interest of 0.125, times the amount of days left in the year, which would be 55 divided by 360. And to do that, you get $259.03 plus $4.95. And to add those together, you get $263.98. So that is the balance due. For the next part, since there is a second partial payment made, we use the banker's rule to calculate the interest on unpaid principal for the period of January 5th to February 2nd. According to that table in your book, the number of days from January 5th to February 2nd is 33 minus 5, which equals 28 days. So you use your interest formula, say I equals $259.03 times the interest of 0.125 times the amount of days over the total amount of the year. So you get for that, the interest is going to be about $2.52. The interest of that amount is due February 2nd and is deducted from the payment of $100. The remaining payment of $100, you must subtract it from the interest. So you now have about $97.48, which is then credited to the principal. Therefore, you adjust the principal of having $259.03. Remember, we calculated that earlier. Here you're going to subtract the $97.48. And you're going to get $161.55 as the new principal for the loan. And for the last portion of this problem, the due date of the loan is March 1st. see, using that formula, that there are, you have to say there are 60 minus 33, or equaling to 27 days. From March 1st, February 2nd to March 1st. The interest is computed, the remaining balance of $161.51 using the simpler interest formula. Okay, so this is the last of the page I can use, so let's finish her up. We have the interest is equal to the amount left, $161.55, times the interest of 0.125, times the number of days, which is 27, divided by the amount of days in the year. And if you calculate that, the interest is going to be $1.51. Now what you have to do is say that the balance of the maturity date of the loan is sum of the principal of the interest. So we take the amount that we had, the $161.55, and now you have to add the interest, and that gives you an amount of $163.06. And you also want to note the sum of the days in there are equal to the total number of days in the loan.